And I was so overly inspired and impressed by you, which we'll get to what you're doing at 75 that is to me mind-blowing, impressive, and exciting for where I'm headed, that I wanted to do this podcast with you for everybody out there to know what's possible on an extreme sport level. Okay, we got our guests.
So my name is Kendall Hobson. I'm a long lifetime resident of New Orleans, born, raised. Have to admit that I left New Orleans after Katrina for the mountains, and I come back. I've got family here. I still love the place, but I needed to be outside. I watched my grandparents go into the air conditioning in May and come out in October, and their mobility just went downhill. And I didn't want that to happen to me. So I wanted to be mobile, because mobile extends your quality of life. Whether life or not, doesn't matter. As long as the quality of your last years is good, then you can't have any regrets.
So how old are you today?
So I'm 75.
Okay. I asked you a very important question, and I said, what's the one thing that's the most important out of all the things that you know you need to do? Like you're in shape, you're a martial artist, you're on the spiritual path, you're one with nature, you get what's important in life, you've got the wisdom at this point, you've got your grandkids, you've got your kids, you have your family, it's all intact, it's understood. And you told me, what is it? Sleep, diet, meditation, exercise. There were a couple other things. Those four were the course. Okay.
Those are the four.
And out of those four, to you, and you already kind of alluded to it, because if you can't have your movement and function, you really don't have anything, no matter how well off you are. What's the one thing you have to do, no matter what, long term?
So the word balance is an interesting word, because it can mean balance in life, or it can mean balance personally. Your ability to walk, run, ski, ride a motorcycle. So, it's, when you think about it, balance is important in every aspect of life.
Amen.
And so, I've been very fortunate, because even living in New Orleans, I had a lot of exercise outdoors, playing tennis all my life. And when for physical reasons I couldn't play tennis anymore, my podiatrist told me, I was going to cripple myself if I continued. So I picked up motorcycling. And it was interesting, because my other favorite sport was snow skiing. And it dovetailed so well with snow skiing, and I didn't realize it at first why I excelled at motorcycling. But when you're on snow skis, you're basically on the ball of your feet, and when you're on a motorcycle, you're on the ball of your feet too, steering the motorcycle with your feet almost as much as your handlebars.
Mm-hmm.
So those two sports were just terrific to maintain my balance. And that's, I think, key for me to do things today, is get up off the floor. I had mentioned to you about this fellow I follow whose goal is to be able to he calls it the, what is it? It's sort of like a decathlon at 100. And it's things like get off the floor with one hand, carry a suitcase upstairs, and so play with your kids, obviously, your grandkids, or great grandkids if you're lucky enough. Yeah. And that was an interesting goal to think about. We had talked about what we could do to stay injury free. And so again, balance comes into that, because balance keeps you from falling, but it also allows you to think about your limitations, to recognize where you're, if for instance, I started doing more resistance training with weights because I knew my muscles were getting weaker, and that I couldn't afford. So, um, yeah, it's all about balance, and maintaining it so that you can, live a better life.
So it's interesting. I asked you what was the difference in transition from 50 to 60, and you told me status quo.
Right,
And that's due to the exercise you
right,
choose to achieve and maintain your balance in order that you're not regressing in any of your life moving forward,
right.
which is huge. So that's the consistency of what you choose to do that works for you.
And it didn't hurt that I had a sport that sort of kept me fit, so that I ate right, um, and slept right because it wore me out, and so I kind of naturally fell into all these things by accident. I mean, I don't want to take any credit for doing these things.
No, I have to laugh because you're talking about I took up motorcycling, right? So like people may be thinking, I'm on a motorcycle, I'm on the highway, I'm casually riding to here and there. No, we this is what impressed me so much and why I love this guy, because now I know you had a catalyst. Something happened in your life that is an unfortunate reality for a lot of people on the planet. And a lot of times when whatever our issues are, we have different emotions around them, and maybe we don't want to talk about it because we're ashamed of it, embarrassed of it, angry about it. The whole range of emotion. And functionally, I believe that you, since I've met you, have been very centered. You're a builder. You like to solve things. We met at Sifu Tommy's martial arts class, Yichendo, right? So already there was a certain mindset that came with you as a man. And that is something that holds a center line, in my opinion, for the people around you. And you're making decisions that are in the interest of the people around you and for yourself so that you can maintain your equanimity, right? So I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but I think in the bigger picture, when everybody in their family has something going on, no matter what, it could be minor, could be major, could be health related, could be addiction, all kind of things. And I think a lot of times families sweep it under the rug, or they don't address the pink elephant, and they struggle. And you had also mentioned a quote when we were dialoguing before this got recorded regarding go alone versus go as a group. So why don't you share that, because that is huge. And anything that you want to lead into why you took on motorcycling that will table full after to share the reality of that.
Well, obviously, I was pretty disappointed not to be able to play tennis. Um,
I would imagine.
and moving on, I mean, it was. I guess you just have to be open, and you have to say, well, what are my dreams? What would I like to do next? Instead of focusing on what you can't do, what can I do? What have I always wanted to do? And it was like, okay, I haven't ridden a motorcycle in 40 years. Let's try this. And I had a very understanding and encouraging wife that just didn't think I was crazy. Just said do it. And and so I mean, when you start doing something, when you start learning something, doing, and especially something you really love or you want to get better at, you start bringing in a lot of new friends because they're interested. And of course, motorcyclists are notorious for getting together and sharing their experiences. And so one thing led to another, and I ended up in a motorcycle club in Birmingham, Alabama, that was geared to the Barber motorcycle track, um, which is one of the top racetracks in the country. And and then I rode street for maybe 10 years, 12 years, and rode all the roads in North Carolina, loved them, but was getting bored. And a couple of my friends were moving into dirt bikes. So that was kind of what I was talking about with steering with your feet, because you're not steering your feet going 90 miles an hour on the road. You're steering your feet going 30 miles an hour through the woods.
Except you have to share the glory of your excitement of taking the turns and jumping over the roots and popping wheelies.
So yeah, I mean, it was a total different, and all the people I were riding with were old motocrossers and enduro.
And how old were they?
They're probably, they're 55 to 65.
Okay.
And so they brought me along. I mean, they were encouraged by my interest and maybe my fanaticism of getting better, and taking the falls to learn, because it's I mean, that's kind of part of life, right?
Yeah, but taking a fall at 70 and not breaking something or having issues where you can't walk is the most amazing thing I think I've heard, because most people at 70 have a hard time walking, functioning on the whole, much less getting on a motocross bike and tearing it up through turns and popping wheelies over roots and all these sort of things. And who goes the fastest out of that group?
Oh, I'm not going to say.
Oh, come on. He's already told me it's
Oh,
him.
no.
So he tears up, he starts in the back in the beginning, but then he ends up being the first one out there because he's probably a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. But just describe taking a turn and sliding through the turn.
Well, you got to have the right equipment. Okay. So you've got to be in full gear, protected, because you can't doubt.
Sure.
You have, if any doubt, you're going to make a mistake.
You can't think about what you're doing.
You got to have
own
confidence. You got to
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And it depends on the bike. I mean, I've got several bikes, and, the lower CC bikes, I have to work harder. The higher CC bikes, I spin that rear tire and point the front end, and off I go.
And you're out. So are you riding a 4-stroke or a 2-stroke?
4-stroke.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, CC dictates the speed and power behind the motorcycle.
Yeah, they always say, and again, the big bore has a lot of torque, so that's the key. So a small CC, you don't have a lot of torque. You have to shift the gears a lot, move up and down the range. But with the big bore 500, you just twist the throttle. You don't have to do much shifting.
And so explain the difference between a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke.
Well, the 2-stroke burns the oil with the gas. I mean, it's mixed, and it's much much torqueier, so you can do a wheelie real quick. I mean, that's if you're in real technical woods. For instance, the trials bikes, if anybody knows trials, where they can climb up a wall straight up. those you need that kind of power from a 2-stroke, but and trouble is that they're illegal on the road now. You can't get one tagged 2-stroke.
So I drove a 2-stroke Honda out in Las Vegas when I lived there, and it wasn't obviously street legal, but I also drove a 4-stroke that was in Brazil, and so I could go anywhere I needed to go, from transit to fun. So I understand the world, but I'm not a motocross guy. I wasn't doing this professionally, but I did a lot of crazy stuff.
You can't help but not.
It's so true. It's so true. The first time I got taught, and I'll just share this quick story as to the sliding, because I really want you to share that, because when you described it to me, it was invigorating. One, because here's a 75-year-old guy, not the personal, but it's just not normal, and I love it, and I want people to know that it can be attainable. So we bought these bikes. I had never ridden a motocross bike. I had a cruiser before, and so we went out to the desert in Nevada, and I'm following, this guy that we're supposed to do these. I was putting on these concerts, and we wanted to add motocross into the concerts and do it in California. So he was kind of recruiting me to go do that. So I bought these bikes for our venture. So we're going out, And I follow him and I just watch him tear off. I mean, he's been riding forever. So I go to take the turn, and I'm sitting there on the ground and the bike had slid way over there, and I'm going, oh,
Not so easy.
not so no. Well, it was all sand, and I had no idea. I was grateful that I was sitting
Right.
on my bum and not hurt.
Right.
And then the bike I could pick up and continue to ride. So, but that was my very first experience of turning in sand. Anyway, so yeah, please describe in the mountains of Carolina when you're taking these beautiful turns, sliding through. It just made me feel good.
Well, it's there's so many variables. So I prefer uphill because downhill you've got gravity pulling you down, and it's always, a little variation in the camber downhill can really upset things.
Sure.
So my favorite is uphill, and to come into a turn, and break traction. So I want that rear wheel to slide, and so I've got to come in fast enough and hit the throttle at the right time to spin that rear wheel around so that my front wheel is facing the direction I want to go in,
Straightening out.
as opposed to slowing down and easing around the turn and then trying to speed up, where you can never keep up with someone who's spinning through the turn, straightening up. So they hardly slow down. I mean, they use the brakes, don't get me wrong, but the brakes are what starts breaking the traction. And when you feel the traction in the back end slide, that's when you throttle out of the turn. And it's just, yeah, when you hit it right and you come out, I mean, it's like flying sideways.
So this is beautiful. So 75, riding these bikes. What got you into riding these bikes? Why did you decide to jump into that? And I know you said tennis got, squashed as far as your ability to do that, but you could have done anything. You could have done so many things. You work outside already. You replace things in the house. You're active in general. Why the bike?
Could be speed.
Fair.
There's just, if you like speed, motorcycle, you really feel the speed. And of course, on a street bike, you really, and the dirt bike's the same, but the turns on a road bike don't vary a lot. I mean, yeah, wet,
it's way
dry, but the pavement stays the same. When you're in the woods,
yeah,
or even on gravel, the moisture makes a huge difference when you break free. And on a single track, you depend, every day is different. If
sure.
The leaves are falling, they're hiding gnarly roots.
That's what you said.
Rocks, so you'll hit something and you got to react instantly, and react with your hands and your feet at the same time. So it's a challenge. Whereas the street bike, there's the old adage that a dirt bike rider will make a great street bike rider, but very few street bike riders will make great dirt bike riders. So the base, to get your base in dirt first, which I didn't do, but fortunately,
same. I didn't either.
Yeah, that's where you really learn to ride, is in the dirt. Because anything you can do in the dirt, you can do on the street. Anything you do on the street, you can't do on the dirt. I mean, it's just.
That's a really kind of amazing analogy, because, or comparison rather. That comparison is very much similar to Sifu's art, right? You could do it slow, you could do it fast,
right?
But if you do it fast, you can't do it slow. Right? So, I want to go back to a couple things. So you were saying when you join something new, to learn something new, come with it new friends, new groups, new personalities, new things to expand yourself, to fill your cup. So I have a lot of Tulane students that come here, and, in college, kids struggle in this sort of thing. And I suggested this one gentleman join a chess club to generate a different level of people around him that would help separate him from things that maybe he needs space from, right?
Right.
With the same principle in mind. Now, of course, Tulane doesn't have a chess club for whatever reason. I said, start one or pick something else, but the principle still applied. your wife, my wife, now she didn't know that I had had 4 bikes before, but I came home and I told her, honey, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. And she said, okay. Like there was no processing about that. It was like whatever I want. So my wife's amazing. So anyway, I buy this bike, and I also have that speed problem, or that speed desire, or I like speed. So I'm riding the bike, and in the city, they're not respecting that. And if you're wearing gear, they're like, oh, this guy must really get it on. So then I got people racing me. I got people seeing me coming, cutting out in front. And, and I'm out there doing the thing. They want to race.
Yeah, you don't want to race cars.
Well, that's why I stopped riding.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
I
wouldn't.
stopped. I stopped riding in the city for the longevity of myself and for the benefit of my family, because it's
Right.
just not worth it.
No, no,
at all.
no.
So, anyways,
no. I mean, that's the difference between the mountains. So, if you're when I was riding the road more, you'd come up behind a slow car on a twisty turn.
mm-mm.
I'd say 5 out of 10 times they'll pull off the next pull off and let you by. They're that respectful of your speed and the fun, that they know how much fun you're having, and they don't want to slow you down, and they don't want to interfere.
That's a cultural thing.
Yes.
To where you are.
Yeah.
That's
very
right.
much so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You don't have these people who, I mean, every now and then maybe a Yahoo you'll pass, and then he tries to stay up with you on these curvy roads in his pickup,
and he can.
And, you just leave him in the dust, and but yeah, it's not near as competitive as you'd find in the city. It's
No.
just, you don't see that. Yeah.
So exercise.
So, but back to something that you'd raised, because I think it's applicable to my personal situation with my wife, who was pretty much diagnosed with dementia. I mean, we started seeing signs of it 5 years ago, and that was one of those transitions that obviously was not as easy to make as tennis to motorcycles, because that was not something I intended. I was looking forward to doing, or was in my toolbox. I just wasn't ready for it, and that took a long time. It was a difficult period, and thank goodness for friends, and I guess my curiosity of what I was facing, and a lot of it was common sense. I mean, I didn't have to worry about abusing her, or I mean, I knew it was an illness. It was nothing that I'd done, that she had done. It was something, I guess in the end, it was like God teaching me patience that I really probably didn't have. So, so it was a long transition, but now, we're over that hump, and she's at peace. She's happy. I still have that beautiful smile that just radiates from her, and every morning I wake up and see it. It's just, frees me up to do what I need to do, and so again, it's just the transition. No matter how long it is a transition. It's kind of like us transitioning all the way through our life. Some are more difficult than others, but you got to have faith that you're going to get through it to the other side. And I've been blessed, and I've gotten through to the other side.
When did you first notice or realize that was happening to your wife?
I probably had seen signs. I mean, silly things, like not picking up things that she'd drop on the floor. Kind of was the first sign. And then it really hit me when I'd gone out of town, and she was going. My son was getting married, and they went to the venue to pick the food, and And when she arrived at the venue, apparently she wasn't there, but secondhand was it she ended up in a situation where she was very confused.
Mm.
Yet she had driven 2 hours and then ended up staying in the hotel. That was only one instance, and then drove back. So it was just a little snippet of time, but everyone in the group noticed that something had happened. And, that was 5 years ago, over 5 years ago. So, yeah, it's a very slow process. You kind of don't, you just kind of scratch your head in the early stages with what's, put it out of your mind, just pick the things up. But when other people start to notice it is when you really have to admit it and say, okay, things have changed.
Things have changed. When things changed and you reached that point, what were some of the first directions you took to understand, solve, support? How did you handle it? How did you set things up for the two of you to function safely?
So she, it was a blessing in that she really didn't know what was going on. The first doctor I took her to, neurologist, said diagnosed her with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, and there's nothing mild about cognitive impairment. And ran her through all the tests. She didn't want to be there. She said, "There's nothing wrong with me." She's never she's never been able to outwardly admit that something was going on. Internally, I think it was a different story because she went through tremendous anxiety, and that had to have been an internal recognition that her life was changing and she couldn't do the things she wanted to do. And that was just a slow progression, less and less and less.
What would you tell people out there who are dealing with a relative that has dementia, as far as for themselves and also for the benefit of their family member?
That everyone that has been in the situation knows that, the old adage that once you've seen one dementia patient, you've seen one dementia patient. That there are no two alike. My wife, over the last, year and a half, she can't really express her words correctly. She knows what she's saying, but they don't come out. It's a jumble of words. And people that, now that she's on hospice, the nurses and the doctor says that, they don't see this too often. So this is kind of I don't know that I'm going to say rare, but again, it's not something that they're all familiar with, that this particular facet of the disease where you can't make a sentence or a very brief sentence. You can't follow it. And so you've got to learn patience, and not let it, if you're walking on eggshells, which is kind of an early phase when especially if the meds aren't right and they're in that anxiety of not accepting it one way or another, then you need to get real help, because you can't let yourself decline where you can't take care of her or him. It's where you learn that you've got to look after yourself at the same time. And whether it's have somebody come in and take care of her for a day, or family or whatever, so that you can get out and ride a motorcycle.
Amen. Yeah, that's right. So that's the full circle. Leaving aside the sadness of the reality that this is just the way life plays out for some of us, and for all of us, nobody's getting out alive anyway. It's the handling it during, which is what's going to make or break the person. And you just gave gold to me, because that self-care is something that is so misunderstood or put off or not normal for the average person, because they're either tending to their job or chasing the money, or they want to solve everyone else's problem instead of considering their own life. Without their own stability, how could somebody take care of their wife or their husband or children?
They
or
really
whoever?
can't.
You can't.
No. Yeah, and it all starts with recognizing that fact. I mean, if for no other reason, as a motivation to change, But you're right. Maybe and thinking about it, I grew up with enough examples of that it was even raising my son, it was like he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do, but I said, okay, I'm going to set an example. And maybe it took 40 years, but he's starting to follow that example now. And so examples are critical. I mean, it's like.
So I'll tell you something funny to that point. Last night in class, we had an older gentleman in his 80s, and he came in and he wanted to join. Of course, he's not going to do the martial arts side, but he's going to do the form side, so he gets the movement and balance of this. But he said exactly what you said, and he said that when his son was young, his son is now 40. He pushed his son to do the martial arts, and then his son did it, enjoyed it. Something happened with the job or whatever, and he stopped. But now he's getting back to it. And now he's pushing his father to go back to do it also, because that's how it goes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I feel, though, I've said this a lot. If you have one person to support you, if you have one person to believe in you, you can do anything. And we all need support on some level. And as males, I have no pride or ego around asking for help, which, maybe in my youth, I wasn't quite so that way.
Oh, I think most of us were.
Most of us, right? So that comes with age. However, if we can learn that early, and the younger generation is coming up way different than we came up. I mean, you can't even compare, and their circumstances aren't the same. So it's not an easy thing to just do a brushstroke of this is how it was, this is how it is, because there's a lot of complexities that involve that wiring from then to now. But if the youth can get that, and they can allow themselves, because I feel like they have a little bit more emotion openness to being emotionally intelligent. I'm not saying that intelligence is automated by the desire, because that takes time too with life experience. However, if they can prioritize self-care, and if they can prioritize their ability to allow help, they'd be a lot further faster.
Yeah, but as well as I do that it does not go with invincibility.
Well, this is true. But I still feel invincible to a degree, and I know you do, because you wouldn't be riding a bike. The difference is that we have wisdom on limits, discernment, preparation, putting ourselves in the right position, getting the knowledge, having people teach us to get to where we can apply and actively do these things that maybe people may not do their whole life. Be brave enough to get on a motorcycle, much less do that. And so it's a catch-22. I don't like to put limits anywhere, because we're capable of more than we can imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, invincible, I don't know I would agree with, because I'm not going to, when I hear gunshots, I'm not so much inclined to run to them anymore.
Let's define invincibility.
So I'm thinking in terms of risk reward. So in knowing how important it is to stay, it's almost like the envelope is riding that fence line, and on the edge where the risk and the reward are even, depending on your ability, your age, whatever. So that I have to be careful to the extent that I'm not going to something happens to me, I can't take care of her. So,
That's right.
and so that changed my risk reward a little bit, but not much because,
You're still riding.
right, I'm still riding.
Let's change the word invincibility from, because we know when we're young, we got the testosterone going like crazy. We totally feel invincible, right? So at this age or our older ages, I'm going to change the word invincibility to just pure confidence. And that confidence in making that turn is the knowledge of, you can't think about, once you know what to do, you can't think about if you're doing it or will you do it. You're just doing it. And that's the confidence in the action that allows you not to come off the bike and make it so you straighten out and go.
Well, maybe that explains why I spend a little more time at the back of the pack than the front these days.
So, but invincibility is, nobody's invincible. But I also think at the same time, the confidence, invincibility, there has to be some element of, you're greater than you think you are, because I know that I've spent a lot of my life thinking that I was way less than the at least bar versus what I can be. And that's been my journey for my reasons of my past. And it's very humbling, but it's also very restricting. And I feel like only now am I starting to come out of that space to experience more bandwidth for what I'm capable of. I've solved all my injuries. That was like a 15-year, 20-year process. And I am getting all of my function back from what I lost through, from young to in my 30s, and I'm now 50. And so I'm excited to experience what it is I'm going to end up doing, and you being an inspiration to me by what you're doing. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, just because I really value you.
Well, Matthew, I'm happy to share. I
Own it, Kendall. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. It's good to be humble. It's crazy when people don't have any humility. And at the same time, families, men need us to own our position in place for the younger generation.
Matthew, it's just for show that I'm humble.
It's just for show.
No,
I'm gonna have to digest that one.
Well, I mean, it's the invincibility. I don't know what word we're looking for.
Yeah.
Maybe it is confidence. But
we want everybody to put in the comments what the word is we're trying to find here, please, to help us.
But it is definitely, I mean, obviously an internal
it's an inside
feeling.
job.
Yeah, it's an inside job.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah. But that's what I was getting back. That's why I like that risk reward.
Yeah.
Is it you constantly have to weigh.
But that risk reward only applies in the mind when you have life you're taking care of. And so that segments out a lot of people who are not married yet, because being married, first of all, being married is one thing. But when you have a child, you're joining a club that has always existed that you didn't know was there. And now another man who has children versus a man who doesn't have children, there's a different mind,
right.
in action.
Well, but that's knowing your limitations. I mean, because those self-imposed limitations.
So I'm not disagreeing, but I'm not agreeing, because there's a framework around what I'm going. So, okay, for example, let's say I was diagnosed, which is never going to happen, with cancer. All my family on my mom's side has died of cancer. My uncle was murdered, and my grandfather had skin cancer but died of a heart attack. So that's not how I'm going, because cancer starts in the mind. I know some of the issues that happened in the past. And I mean, look, don't take this wrong, because there's a lot of people out there with cancer, but it's such a eggshell topic that I'm not eggshelling over right now, that can ruffle a lot of feathers.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to talk about me and not the world. So I choose that's, and I sort of know how I'm going to go anyway. So that's not part of the program. However, because my family or in my family it existed doesn't mean it's going to exist in me, unless because I believe that that happened, I manifest and create it, because that's what my mind is ruminating over. And the mind's so powerful that the mind will actually create things. Just like an injury or trauma won't leave if I keep giving it attention, because it's like the child. The child wants attention and acts up if he's not getting it. He or she can get love, and that's the attention, or he or she can get fear and ugly, and that's the attention. It doesn't matter. They want the same thing, but it's the adult that needs to choose what's the higher order of delivery for that child's future. And so when we talk about limitations, I'm not going to limit my mind around, I don't have a choice with, I'm going to have cancer. And I had somebody in here the other day, and her partner, it was interesting. So her partner is terrified about getting cancer. But if she got cancer, she was going to move to Bhutan and go meditate and like deal with it that way and not go the medical route. And this one was going to go 100% the Western route. Is she wrong? Is she wrong? I'm not the one to say. However, I know that I've also had somebody that went to a doctor and was told she had breast cancer. She looked at the doctor and says, "Sir, no, I do not." And she got up and she left. She's alive today. It's 17 years later. So it's all relevant to the limitations that we put on ourselves. And it's our wisdom that chooses not to do things because we know we got somebody to go home to that's counting on us. But I don't want you to have limitations, because if you did, you wouldn't be riding a motorcycle. So it's a catch-22, right?
Right. Personal decision.
Personal decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it hammered into me by my second teacher, my first teacher by many lifetimes. Don't put limitations on yourself. And so I've really had to work with that framework on how to splice it where it needed to splice in all these other areas, while still being reasonable with the risk reward for the sake of those I love, for the benefit of staying around. And I want to stay in shape as long as I can till I die, because I want to be able to do with my children what they do. And I have one really beautiful example. There's this gentleman who comes in here, and his father is, I think he's in his 80s. But man, they go skiing together. They go on these hikes that the average person won't even be able to do. And they're from Seattle. They grew up with this.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, that is like you riding the motorcycle, taking care of your wife, living your life, finding the balance, coming down here to New Orleans to take care of the rest of your family, like having a really beautiful life, actually, within the context of what you're dealing with, because you can still see the beauty of all the things that your wife has given you that makes you light up, and the light's still in your eyes. And that's how you know if somebody's well, is the light in their eyes. In my experience, how much is there? And you got it, my brother.
Smiling helps.
Smiling lights up. So there's a difference between a smile and the eyes stay the same. And I want everybody to pay attention to all the people you meet for the rest of your life. When you smile with your eyes, you got something different.
Good point.
You got something different.
I definitely agree. Good point.
So let's cap with what you want to leave the world knowledge-wise. I always like to ask this question, and you're not leaving anytime soon, so let's qualify that. However, if there was something the world could benefit from within your experience, what would be the thing you'd leave them? Respect to family.
I think that, I guess a word comes to mind when you put it like that, and that's resilience.
Mm.
That's, you could say it's a little similar to balance. Is it your resilience keeps you from going overboard, keeps the pendulum from going too far out of whack? Is it you can recover kind of I hate to make the analogy with a motorcycle, but you know, the resilience of being able to recover from a slippery route that has thrown your balance way off kilter. And by being resilient, and back to what you're saying is you were talking about confidence, the confidence in your resiliency to recover. That's what I would say.
Man, you're talking about deep level, multi-worded combination from your full presence and confidence in your ability to make it happen under harsh circumstances.
Just don't ask me to say that again.
I've really enjoyed it, and I enjoy every time I see you, and I appreciate you, and thank you for being an example of a man who once makes that commitment through hardship and all the things that could happen, you stick by your partner's side to do the right thing. You're a good example to your family.
This is not a lesson. This is a summons. If you are hearing this now, it is because something in you is ready to rise. You have waited long enough. The silence you feel, the restlessness inside you, it is not confusion. It is a call, a divine order echoing from within, commanding you to stop living like you were forgotten. You were not made to shrink. You were not placed here to drift. You were sent. And the one who sent you does not apologize for power. The man who listens with reverence, who studies this again and again until it becomes his new law, he will not just change. He will become the living proof of purpose, sent with clarity, walking with power, and finishing what heaven began. Now listen, because the moment you believe this truth, you will no longer walk as a man. You will walk as one who was sent. You have walked long enough pretending to be less than what you were sent to become. You have bowed long enough to fear. You have hesitated long enough in the shadow of doubt. But now the voice of purpose calls to you. And if you will obey what is about to be spoken, not just hear it, but obey it, you will never again be the man you were before this hour. Because what I'm about to give you is not motivation. It is law, not advice, instruction. It is the truth of who you are beneath the story, beneath the excuses, beneath the hesitation that the world has taught you to wear. And here is that truth. You were not made small. You were not sent here to drift. You were not placed on this earth to survive. You were sent with power. You were sent with command. You were sent with God Himself written into your spirit. And yet most men live like intruders in their own life. They apologize for wanting more. They hide their fire. They speak with hesitation, act with delay, and wait to be approved before they move. Not because they lack ability, but because they have forgotten who sent them. And the world prefers it that way. Because the man who walks as if God is within him, that man cannot be controlled. That is why this truth is not handed out in schools. It is not printed in the headlines. It is not celebrated in public. Because when a man begins to think as if heaven lives inside him, he becomes ungovernable by weakness. He no longer listens to the noise. He no longer waits for support. He no longer serves fear. He begins to walk differently, speak differently, build differently. And the moment that man appears, systems that rely on confusion begin to collapse. You must understand this. Infinite intelligence is not far off. It is not hiding. It is not waiting in the clouds. It is within you. But it will not move until you do. And when you act in alignment with the purpose you were sent to fulfill, when you carry yourself as if heaven has given you a task, when your words, your decisions, your habits reflect reverence for that mission, everything begins to change. But this will only work if you listen, if you obey every word. If you silence the voice in your mind that wants to entertain, compare, skip forward, or analyze. Because the truth I am about to give you is hidden, not shouted. And if you drift while hearing it, you may miss the line that your future was built to receive. Do not let that happen. Listen with your full attention. Study this as if your life depends on it, because it does. And do not hear it once. The wise man will return to this message again and again until it becomes him. Until the thought, God is within me is not a phrase, but a fact. Until the posture of one sent becomes your natural stance, until your identity is no longer uncertain, but etched in divine certainty. You are not here to survive. You are here to build. You are not here to wait. You are here to command. You are not here to ask. You are here to decide. And the moment you begin to act as if God is within you,
God is within me.